What I'm going to show you here is to show you the full solution to exercise 249, which is in your text in chapter 2 on page 256. What I've done on the left hand side here, I've prepared the infrastructure to record all these general journals. I'm going to show you then how to post that to the cash at bank account, and lastly to balance, and to then lastly to put it into a trial balance. Let's start. On the first day here, we perform services on cars for $1,000. It's for cash at bank. In this instance, we received cash for this. It's $1,000, and it was for services performed. It's a revenue account, and that is $1,000. Let's just quickly check. We received some cash as an asset went up, a revenue increased on the credit side. Debit, credit, all okay. Let's look at the next transaction. We paid some wages. Wages is an expense which 99% of the time is always going to be on the debit side with $1,500. We paid cash for that. $1,500. Okay, debit, credit, all okay. We purchased some consumable supplies on June the 4th. So the account here is consumable supplies. It was $1,000, and you'll note that these were purchased from Ampol on account. So we've got a liability to Ampol for $1,000. Debit, credit. The next transaction is a little bit more unusual. We have actually rented out a section of our business to somebody else, and we've received some cash, and the revenue is going to be called received, or rent received. Let's put this in first. It was for $2,000. The other account here is a revenue account, rent, revenue, and since that's a revenue, it goes on the credit side. Okay, that's that one. On June the 10th, we carried out some work, but there's a complicating factor here, is that we did some cash work, and we did some work for Jim Truckers. Right? So let's just deal with the cash first. We received $2,500 worth. That's $2,500. Now, Jim Truckers, we've did some work for this guy, and he still owes us some money, $1,000 in fact. So that appears as a debit, as a debtor. He's going to pay us. And the other account, we completed some work. So that is a revenue for $3,500. So that's a bit more of a complicated transaction, but let's just check a few things. We've got at least one debit, one credit. We've got total amount of debits equaling total amount of credits, so that's all okay. Let's go on to the next one. On June the 20th, we paid Ampol. Right. So Ampol is a entry that we generated earlier. Right. We got some consumable supplies for $1,000, and now what we're doing, we're going to pay them back. So Ampol was a liability. We're using that liability, therefore it appears as a debit of $1,000. We paid some cash. As you know, when we pay cash, it reduces asset account, therefore it appears on the credit side as it's shown there. Got a few more entries down here. We paid some more wages. That's the same as before, so that's not going to be difficult, so I'm going to scoot through that one. We paid cash for it, obviously. There we are. And on the end of the month, we paid our electricity bill. That was for $500. Again, we paid cash for it. Alright, so what we've done our general journal entries. That's the first part of our accounting process. And now what I want to do, I'm going to go back up the top here. I'm going to go from the general journal and put these entries into the cash at bank account. I'm going to do it blow by blow so you see the whole process at work. First of all, it says here on June the 1st, it asks us to debit the cash at bank account. So I'm going to put that in, June the 1st. It was for services performed. Remember, that is the cross-reference that we use. This other half of the equation. You can see there that what I've done, I've debited the cash at bank account for $1,000. There it is, cash at bank, debit. The other side of the equation is services performed, which is the next account. I've been asked to put that on the credit side. So over here, again, the same date. It was for cash, and it was for $1,000. So services performed, credit side $1,000. So I've ticked that, Now I'm ready to go on to the next transaction. Wages debit $1,500. So I'm going to put that on this side, put in the date. It was for cash. It was for $1,500. You'll note here that I've been asked to debit that. That's what that says. So debit wages. There it is on the debit side. I've got a credit bank of $1,500. So up here on June the 3rd, I spent $1,500 on wages. There we are. So just going back to my general journal entry, this said credit cash at bank $1,500. This is my cash at bank account. I've credited on $1,500. Remember that the other half of that transaction was for wages. So if I look at the cash at bank account, oh, I spent some money, oh, it was for wages. Right? And that's the way the cross-referencing system works. On June the 4th, we purchased some consumable supplies. It asked us to debit $1,000, and this time it was from Ampol. It happened on June the 4th. Ampol, and it was the amount from that we bought from Ampol was $1,000. So we've ticked off this entry up here. Ampol is the next account that we've got to post to. It says a credit to Ampol. I'm going to put it on the credit side. It is the 4th. The particulars relates to consumable supplies, and it was for $1,000. Okay, it says check that one. Ampol credit was with consumable supplies on that side. The next one is cash at bank and rent revenue. So we've got a debit cash at bank for $2,000. So if I go back up here, cash at bank, that happened on the 7th. It was for rent revenue. It was for $2,000. Other half of that equation we've got to put into the rent received account or rent revenue account, whichever way you like. It asks us to put that on the credit side, which I'm going to do. Received cash short, was for $2,000. Okay, so now we've finished that one. Now we come back to the cash at bank account. We received some money from from services performed of $2,500, so that entry needs to be put into the cash at bank account. So let's just do that first up. There we are. The 10th was for services performed, and it was for $2,500. So we've put the debit to the cash at bank account. I'm going to scroll back down here. We've got a debit Jim Truckers for $1,000, so let's do that. That's there. For services performed, $1,000. So lastly, we've got to put the credit to the services performed account. So on the credit side, on the 10th of June, we received some cash, and we've got a reference to Jim Truckers, and that was for the total of $3,500. So that has sorted out that credit there. Let's just keep moving on the last couple of transactions. On June the 20th, we paid back Ampol. So here it is, a debit to the Ampol account. Let's put that in. So we've put that debit entry to the debit side of the Ampol account. You must put this credit, because we paid some money, to the cash at bank account, which is up here. Okay. So it's the 20th. It's Ampol. It's for $1,000. We've got two more entries to make, to post to our general ledger. We've got to record wages and cash at bank. Wages is an account that we had before. I'm going to bring that up here. That's again for $1,500. This happened on the 23rd. Again, it's for $1,500. I'm going to have to record the amount of cash. That's the credit side there, $1,500. So I'm going to scroll back up. A lot of scrolling around today. So that was for $1,500. And we've got one more entry to make, and that's the last entry. And that's to do with electricity. So that happened on the 30th. It was also for cash, so $500. So what we've done, we've posted this debit entry to the debit side of the electricity account. And lastly, we've got to put in this $500 entry to the cash at bank account. That is up the top. So on the cash at bank side, I need to put on the 30th the amount for electricity, and that was for $500. So what I've done now, I have posted from the general journal entry to the ledger accounts, and the next step I'm going to do is to do all my balancing and then put that into the trial balance. I'm going to show you how to balance the cash at bank account just as revision. So let's begin with the balancing of the cash at bank account. You'll see on this side I've got more debits than credits. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to total that up, which amounts to $5,500. The process was I'm going to put both the same amount on both sides, and that's our balancing item. Now what you'll find is that the difference between those items and that item will be our balance. Right? We do this always at the end of the month. So let's put the date in. Its balance carried down. And when you do the maths on this, you'll find that the balancing figure is $1,000. So what I must do to keep the running balance going the next month, which is the 1st of July, I'll bring my balance down, and that's that item there. So what I've shown you there is the running balance that I do for assets, liabilities and owner's equity. Remembering just as a clarification that for all revenues and expense accounts I close them off to the profit and loss account. So I'll quickly show you how to do that as well, and then I will go on to the trial balance. So in this instance I put profit and loss, that's what P&L stands for. The total amount, as you can see, is $4,500. So that's the amount that gets closed off the services performed account to the profit and loss account for the sole purpose of calculating the profit. Similarly with the wages account, I close that one off too. That's going to be fairly simple. I've got a total there of $3,000. So to do the proper setting out, I've got to set it out nicely like that. So this item here is going to be closed off to the profit and loss account so we can calculate our profit. Okay, I'm back to do the last section. You'll see that I've prepared my trial balance. It's Smith's Vehicle Repairs, trial balance as at the 30th of June 2013. I'm going to put all the final balance of the accounts in this column here, but I have to be careful to put down whether they're debit or credit. So let's start. The cash at bank account, it's a debit amount for $1,000. Services performed is the next account, and that is a credit amount of $4,500. Wages is the next one. That's a debit amount for $3,000. Consumable supplies is the next one. Again, that is a debit amount. I'm going down a bit to get the remainder. Ampol, now I don't have to put anything down for that because there's a zero balance, so I'm not going to do that one. The next account I'm going to do is rent received. That was for $2,000. That's a credit item. Jim's Truckers is an account that is owed. Currently there's a running balance of that of $1,000, but that is on the debit side. And lastly, electricity. Going to run out of room here in a minute. That's $500. Be careful to put it on the debit side. Okay, now we come to the final of our exercise. I want to make sure that I've done this process correctly, and I will do so by adding up both sides. So I'm going to add up the debit side, and I'm going to do the same to the other side. And look at that, the trial balance balances. So I've done all my debits and credits correctly. that is the full exercise 249, and you will have to be able to do these exercises from transaction. When you see something like this, you better put it in the general journal, then post it to the correct side of the appropriate account. You balance those accounts, and the final balances go in the trial balance. And this enables us to go to the next step, which is to produce our financial reports, namely our income statement and balance sheet. Hopefully that's been useful to you.